Hey, I'm Kristen Anderson. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Bear Creek area manager. I'm here in Ashland. Here to talk to you about your June edition of Read This. And I thought because it's June, which is Pride Month, we would talk a little bit about books with queer representation and why we have them. As I was preparing, one of the things I started thinking about was this kind of conversation that is becoming something that we're a little, we're aware of, where conversations about, we even talked about challenged books last month. So like the conversation where someone says, this book doesn't belong in a children's area because it has queer content in it, and what that queer content is might be appropriate for older teens, but is definitely not for preschoolers. And we talked about kind of the range of childhood appropriateness. And I wanted to kind of springboard off of that so if you want to see that conversation, go back and watch the last one. But I wanted to springboard off of that and talk about what is a developmentally appropriate book at specific developmental milestones, so that like people who are maybe not in the know about these conversations can understand how to parse them. So to do that, I pulled a list called the Rainbow Reads List, which is a list that is compiled annually by the LGBT Roundtable division of the ALA. And what they do every year is identify kind of the best in category, and they have, what comes out is like a nice list that looks like this, and it has a nice little synopsis. So I will tell you, I'm talking about books that I haven't necessarily read right now, but I'm talking about books that I've read synopsises for, and I thought, oh, I'll just do a survey, and I will read all of these summaries and tell you kind of the trends of what and why these books might be important to have in a library. And so the first category is preschool titles. So we're talking about titles for very, very young children. These are texts that may not even overtly mention topics of queerness. Like that's not what these are. These are books that would be representational in nature. So a category of book that's really popular and kind of important to have in library settings are like welcome to the newborn books that are just like, mommy loves you, beautiful pictures of families together, welcome to the world, baby. And some of them have, and they're great for reading with, for example, an older sibling when a new baby is on the way. And there are specific, like, it's nice to have those match kind of the family. So I remember there's one by Nikki Grimes that came out that was really the first one that we'd seen that was just a really gentle one with featuring illustrations of a Black family as opposed to a white family or anthropomorphized animals. And then you've got like the ones that are in this category, which often feature parents that would be illustrated that would be of the same gender representation, or an adoption story. And those become important in preschool for that reason. So these are common picture books, but that have different representation for what a family looks like. You also have preschool books that are for and about children who either are being raised in a very gender neutral way, or are what's sometimes called gender creative. So who like a young boy who enjoys playing dress up and putting on dresses. That it's not talking about whether he's trans in any way, shape, or form. It's just like, this is a little kid who likes to put on dresses. And that happens in preschool fiction, preschool queer fiction. And all of that is developmentally appropriate. That's what we're offering to preschoolers in that category. And when you get into early elementary and beyond, what gets added into that mix is like as you add age to kind of what it's developmentally appropriate for, first of all, you're going to start seeing biographies that mention that people who are historical figures, who are important figures, might have been married to someone of the same gender or have been gay, that you might not have seen biographies mention of them before. Maurice Sendak is an example of a children's author who lived his life as a closeted gay man. We didn't really find out that he was gay until after he had passed. And so a biography of someone like Maurice Sendak, including that fact about him, would be something that would be included in a queer book, a book on one of these lists, right? And then as kids begin to learn more about themselves and their own identities, it's not just about family representation, it's about the representation of main characters. I want to remind everybody that these books aren't just for kids or families who are queer. We've talked before about Rudine Sims Bishop's concept of windows and mirrors and sliding glass doors. And the idea of a window book is a book that allows you to see into someone else's experience, and that builds empathy. And so if you're reading a book about someone who is not like you, you're, in fiction in particular, you're building empathy, and your child would be building empathy if they were reading that. And if they're reading a book that is about someone like them, it's a mirror book, it's reflecting their identity back to them, that builds self-esteem. We all need both of those things. So we do believe that everybody should be reading all of these books, not exclusively one kind or another. But we also fully support parents' rights to make the decision about what their children are accessing. So if a parent were to come to us and say, that you want books that don't include this kind of material, that would be an appropriate library seeking question, or like a library information seeking question that we could answer for you. So that's what I wanted to say about kind of the books that include gay themes for young people. And I wanted to remind everyone, not everyone even knows this, I wanted to talk briefly about the 5 laws of library science. I'm wearing one of the laws on my t-shirt here. Ragnanathan is a guy who wrote these laws for libraries, and it's taught in library school to this day. And his 5 laws are: books are for use. The second law is every person his or her book. The third law is every book its reader. And this is the idea that some of these books are for me and not for, like, and you might not like them. And some of these books are for you and I might not like them, and that's okay. 4 is save the time of the reader. That's an important job that libraries serve, is like putting books into an order that would help you find what you need. And 5 is a library is a growing organism. We're changing, we're evolving. I think that, some of the stereotypes about libraries and librarianship make us seem like antiquated or throwbacks in some way. And it's important, like we work very hard to be current and thoughtful about what current needs are for our collections. And so what librarians do has changed over time. And also for Pride, one of the things we do as a staff is crowdsource lists. And so I decided I would take the crowdsource list that we made this month to celebrate Pride. And one thing I love about JCLS staff is we have all kinds of different readers who read literary fiction and genre fiction and short stories collections, but we all read really diversely. So if I were to throw out a prompt on Teams for our staff to respond, like, hey, what have you read recently that features this kind of character? We've got a lot of readers with lots of different tastes. So our crowdsourced lists are very genre diverse. And what I was seeing when I looked through this list is a lot of speculative fiction and a lot of romance. And those are some pretty hot kind of categories for queer fiction specifically. And the prompt was that these stories had to center queer voices and queer stories. So all of these books fall into that category. All the ones I'm going to talk about, these are adult books. I was talking about kids earlier. These are for adults. And One of the ones that I wanted to mention specifically is a series called Lavender House. That is a historical mystery series. That Lavender House is the first installment in that series. There are currently 3 set in the 1950s San Francisco. So it's kind of a noir mystery. The main character was a police officer at the beginning of the first installment, is caught at a gay bar in a raid, loses his position, and slowly becomes a detective over the course of the 3-book arc that's happened so far. And it's lovely. It's a great mystery. It's a great book for it's a great mirror or a window book. It's just a good story, which is, I think, what all of us love. So Lavender House is definitely worth checking out. Another one that popped to the surface for me, Most Ardently, which is called a Pride and Prejudice remix. This is going to sound improbable when I give this concept out, and I have to acknowledge when I talk about books like this, it is definitely a Pride and Prejudice retelling. I am a sucker for a Pride and Prejudice retelling. I do know the material, the source material really, really, really well. And so sometimes a concept for a remix can be something that I'm like, I don't even think they can pull this off. But this one is well executed, and the conceit in this one is that the Lizzie Bennet character is a trans man. So it's got but there's still the love story with Darcy and all of the elements of Pride and Prejudice that you're familiar with. And it's really well executed. That one's a teen book, and it's definitely worth checking out, particularly if you're, like me, a Pride and Prejudice stan. There's lots of horror in here. One that I loved this past year is Someone You Can Build a Nest In, which sounds really creepy because it's a story from the point of view of basically the monster in the story. And it's delightful as a horror, maybe more of kind of towards the cozy end of horror. So hopefully that list, whether you're looking for window or mirror books, will have something that will appeal, because the intent of that list is not just to be a list that appeals to our queer residents of Jackson County. It's intended to be a list that's interesting and read by all residents. So take some time, browse, see if there's something that appeals to you in that book and or in that list, and we'll see you next month.